My Korean husband.
Hey guys, I'm Nicola.
I'm Hugh, Mr. Guan.
And we're from the My Korean Husband vlog. And we have moved to Korea, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are living with your parents in rural Korea.
Rural Korea.
Yeah.
Winter.
In winter, yeah.
No snowing.
There's no snow at the moment. So I'm from an area of Australia that is pretty rural as well, right?
Country girl.
No, I'm not a country girl. It's not the... Anyway, what we're going to do today is compare some things. So, Korean countryside versus Australian countryside. So, there's a few things that are different.
We win.
It's not a competition.
Okay.
We're just talking about differences.
Okay.
Alright. Okay, so the first big difference is space, right? So, Australia is a huge country and Korea is not so huge.
Korea is tiny.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it like,
small.
I didn't want to say it because then you'd be like, oh no, we're not that small, blah,
No,
blah, blah.
it's small country,
Alright.
everyone knows.
Okay, so you're admitting that. So if you've got a map of Australia, Australia is like this and then Korea is like this. So the farming area is very different. So in Australia we've got fields and fields, or paddocks as we say in Australia, like paddocks and paddocks, like one farm, like you can't see the end of it sometimes. But in Korea, so your parents' farm is like, it's not even that much bigger than like the block of land my parents have that we live on. It's only a few times that size of my backyard. So
Because Korea land is small. What can you
Yeah.
do? But there are some big farms.
there are some.
Yeah.
I have seen some bigger ones, but it's just nothing compared to Australia, where a farm in Australia is huge. So I think even sort of hobby farms in Australia are bigger than sort of a normal farm here. Okay, so even though Korea is smaller than Australia, Korea has a much bigger population, right?
Yes.
So Australia is huge, but we don't really have that many people. Yeah, but in Korea there's people everywhere. So even though we're in like a really rural area, there's still people everywhere and small farms everywhere, and actually we can just walk to the next town. So if this was a small town in Australia, so like for example around the area I'm from, if we were to drive through Geary or Wellington or somewhere like that,
Half an hour.
yeah, and it's just like a small town and there's nothing there, there's nothing there to do. But here we can just walk to the next town. And that brings me to another point. Public transport is a million times better in Korea than Australia. I mean, Australia's always had really terrible public transport.
Yes.
So bad. But in Korea, public transport is really good and it's cheap and you can go anywhere on it. It's fine. You don't need a car, where Australia is very much a car country and people have cars and you're expected to drive and pollute the environment.
Yeah, if you live in countryside in Australia, you need car.
You need a car, definitely.
But in Korea, actually you don't really need a car.
So the biggest city near us is what? Jinju?
Jinju.
Jinju, okay. And that's a decent size, but it's still like considered the countryside, right? A Seoul person,
If you guys watch Reply 994, yes, it is small city, because they think except Seoul, everyone
Seoul people
else,
think everybody else is in the countryside. So a Seoul person is going to think Jinju is the countryside, right? But Jinju is actually the big city that we're going to.
yeah, there is a department store.
Yeah, okay.
And everything is there.
Yeah, so this is the type of arguments you'll hear from people that live in the countryside. No, it's not the countryside. We have this, we have this, we have this. So Jinju is...
We have an airport.
Okay, so Jinju is about 20 minutes bus ride.
Yeah.
So in Australia, if I lived 20 minutes from another big town, I probably wouldn't go that often because you've got to drive and it's a big effort to go to another town that's 20 minutes away. But here, it's just a few dollars on the bus. How much is it on the bus?
$2.
$2 on the bus, and they come every 10 minutes or 15 minutes and just go back and forth. So it's very easy for us to go to Jinju to do any of the stuff we want to do, any of the shopping we want to do. Really easy. But in Australia, you can't just go back and forth like that. If you have a car, you've got to think about the petrol and everything like that. And the distance and hitting kangaroos.
Yeah, even Seoul, from here to Seoul is not really far.
No.
3 hours.
3 hours on buses that go every half hour.
Yeah.
So we can go to Seoul for the day as well. Yes, okay, so public transport. Korea wins at public transport. And taxis are really cheap.
Yes.
So sometimes if we don't feel like walking, we can just get a taxi because it's really cheap. Okay, now another really big difference that I noticed between rural Korea and rural Australia is old people. So in Korea, you see the old people everywhere. They're very, very visible. Now in Australia, some families might have a grandma or grandpa living with them, but a lot of old people are now in nursing homes, in old people's homes, or even if they still own their own home, you don't see them as much because they have a pension and they have money usually. And even though there's still lots of poor old people in Australia, the support the government gives is way better than what happens in Korea. So even in Korea, even though the family might be looking after them, the family might not be looking after them, or it might not be enough. So what you see here, and this actually makes me feel sad a lot of the time, is you see especially the old women are out selling the stuff that they've grown on their farms and their gardens. So open markets like that. And sometimes it can be really heartbreaking because they don't have that much to sell and they need the money and you want to buy something. But, but there's so many, like there's
so many
hundreds of old women selling different stuff and you want to support them and you want to help them, but you can't afford to do that either.
Yeah.
So that's something that is a big, and you feel sad about that, right?
Every time I see them,
So you see that a lot more in the countryside than you will in Seoul, and it is one of those things that makes you feel sad and wish that there was better support for them from the government.
Welfare.
Yeah, there needs to be better welfare for these people because traditionally the family should be looking after these old people, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't always work out like that. I mean, if it works perfectly, then that's a great system that the family is looking after them and the old person doesn't have to work like that. But it doesn't always work like that, and people move away or family die or things like that. So a lot of old people are working until they're ancient just to get by, just to have a little bit of money.
The older people picking the boxes and other stuff, but they only earn like $200 a month, and it's really hard to live $200.
Yeah, so you will see that a lot. You'll see people going through, old people going through the rubbish, and you'll see people pulling around like wagons with the cardboard boxes and everything like that. You see the old women selling things like that, and it can be a bit confronting and it can be really sad.
Yeah, and because it's showing that Korea, like the K-pop is really popular, and Korea, the technology is really high and everything is good, and we are like first country, but the other side, we have that kind of problem.
Yeah, and I think that comes with becoming a developed country very quickly. So whereas a lot of other countries did it very slowly and all these things catch up like that, Korea became a developed country in a matter of less than a lifetime, really.
Yeah.
So there's elements like that haven't caught up, and there is still things that are confronting like that to see. Yeah. So when you think of a countryside guy in Korea, what do you think of? Like some of your friends are really, really countryside guys. And so actually here's two types of friends. You have friends that work in coffee shops that look more like flower boys, that are sort of handsome like that, and they've got the hair and they work in the coffee shop. And then you've got your other type of friends, which are the countryside guys, right? And they always wear the hiking gear. So always hiking it, and they're quite big guys. I mean, tall, but also big this way. Like they've been drinking
a lot. Yeah. Almost every day.
There are big guys in Korean countryside. I mean, there might be a stereotype of small, skinny guys, and it's more like that in Seoul maybe. But countryside guys are big guys usually. Yeah. So,
I don't know if people watch Reply 994. If you see three.
There was a scene with three guys there.
Yeah, they really look like my friends.
Yeah, that's what I said when we watched it. Like your friends. Yes.
Yeah, they look scary.
The whole Korean K-pop pretty boy you don't see as much here. So these type of guys, so countryside guys, they wear the hiking gear like that, right? And that's their fashion sense. So let's compare that to maybe Australian countryside guys. Australian countryside guys are usually driving around in a ute. So I think that's called a utility in the US maybe. And they might have, like, so they have the shirt and the dog and the Akubra hat. So Australian countryside guys, definitely there is a whole different fashion sense compared to Korean countryside guys, right? Yeah, there's a lot of differences there.
Yeah, but we are not wearing hiking gear all the time. When we go
I've-
somewhere
I've never seen your friends not wear hiking gear.
when they go to Seoul, they are not wearing hiking gear.
Because they're going to Seoul.
And when my Seoul friends, they are not wearing hiking gear. But my friends from here, they do a lot because there are so many mountains nearby.
But they're not going to the mountains. It's
They
just
do.
fashion. They're not going to the mountains every day, but they're wearing the hiking gear every day.
Gwangsu does.
Yeah. He goes to the mountains. So one of your friends goes to the mountains. They all wear the
Because
hiking
hiking gear is really comfortable.
gear.
And
It's
even
a
though you
comfort
have
thing.
you have big belly, it covers.
It doesn't cover.
really comfortable.
Anyway, stop jumping. We're on the bed.
Jumping,
Jumping. Everywhere. Okay. Stop
Okay.
jumping.
Okay.
We don't have much space here. Okay, last thing. What was I going to talk about?
Greenhouses.
Okay, greenhouses. So that's a big difference between Australian farming and Korean farming, greenhouses. And of course we've got greenhouses in Australia, but generally farming is done on a very large scale, but here it's mostly in the greenhouses. So what do your parents grow?
We grow strawberries.
And there are so many strawberries here, they're literally just piles of them around. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's the most obvious, biggest differences between Australian countryside and Korean countryside.
And because in Korea the winter is really cold, so if you have plants outside in winter, they just all die.
Yeah.
So we have lots of greenhouses.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure there'll be lots more differences, like the longer we're here we'll be able to see some more of the smaller differences, but I think they're the big ones today. So thank you guys for watching this video, and don't forget to thumbs it up and subscribe if you like these videos. There will be more Korean countryside stuff coming your way.
And we go to Seoul.
And we're going to feel like country bumpkins. Whenever I'm here and then we go to Seoul and we get off the bus, I just feel like I don't know what to do.
And
So many people. There's too many people.
Yeah, big building.
And big
Wow, really
buildings.
tall. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.